Welcome. Happy Artist Spotlight. My name is Christine Cox. I'm in the studio of BalletX. We are so excited to have you this afternoon, and please welcome Hope. Yay, Hope Boykin. It is such an honor and such an exciting time to have you here with us. I just feel like we get each other, and you've just been so incredible to collaborate with. So everybody, quiet round of applause. Please welcome Hope.
Thank you, friend. How are you today?
Couldn't be better.
Good, good.
Hope, we have known each other forever.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know that our audience knows you, so we're going to ask to dive in a little bit and tell us about where were you born, when did you take your first dance class, and what drives you each and every day to keep making, and why do you love it, what you do?
Oh, hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is fun. I always love these kinds of chats, and I'm really grateful to be around such a powerful leader like Christine. I'm originally from Durham, North Carolina. I started dancing at like 2 or 3. I did gymnastics and competed a while. But I went to what I think we like affectionately call a Dolly Dinkle, Olive Godwin School of Dance and Gymnastics. And my first dance class, we had one leotard, and we took off the skirt, put on a tutu, took off the fringe for tap, and then you had nothing for jazz. And it was an hour and a half hour ballet, a half hour of jazz, half hour of tap, and that was the thing. But apparently, I'm told that people were not in line. And so I left my position and went and moved all of the other dancers to the place that they were supposed to be, and then went back to my position during the recital. That was what my mother has said, my aunt said, my dad told me. So clearly, I was supposed to be making decisions. I was told not to call myself bossy, but a decision maker. So I was making decisions then, and I get to continue to make decisions now. I studied dance throughout high school, but not really thinking it would be something I would do for the rest of my life. I came from a family of educators. My mother was the first one in our family to go to college, and she graduated from North Carolina Central University when she was 18. So that was kind of a lot to live up to, someone graduating from college that young. And so she is a wonder and a marvel, comma, as much as I understood the drive for education, the arts were calling me. And so I went to Howard University. It was the right thing to do, but it's also the university that I wanted to go to because I grew up in private school. My mother was a public school educator, but I grew up in private school, and I wanted to be around people that looked like me. And so I chose Howard University. I applied to one school. I said I was getting into that school, and I did. And Debbie Allen went to Howard University. Lynn Whitfield went to Howard University. The drama department, the musical theater department, stellar at Howard University. Why wouldn't I go to Howard? But then I got there, not doing research, just knowing that I wanted to go and be surrounded by other black people. I wanted to like see people that looked like me doing the thing that I loved. There was no dance major at the time, so I was taking all these dance classes and credits that were like 1 credit for modern, 2 credits for ballet, and I was like, I'm a psych major. That's what I was going for. And then I decided to take a semester off, and so I moved to New York, stayed on a friend of mine's love seat. And a love seat is supposed to fit two. I know I'm not as tall as others, but I'm longer than two people's seat. I slept on that love seat for about 3 months, 3 or 4 months. I was a student at the Ailey School, and I was an intern. I worked for every class I took. I had to work an hour. They think they call it work study now, but it was an internship then, back in the 90s. It was called something else. And while I was at the Ailey School, I did a performance. I became really good friends with Matthew Rushing, who is now the Associate Artistic Director of the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. And I just love saying that because that sounds cool. But he did a solo for me, and it was in this program called January Explosion. And after the second night of the January Explosion, someone tapped me on my shoulder and was like, "Hey, Hope, we'd love to see you dance. Me and my partner are putting on a performance, and we'd love for you to be in it." How would I know over 20 something years later that I was an original member of Complexions? That was Dwight Roden that tapped me on my shoulder, and he was like, Desmond and I are doing and I'm at the Ailey School, like, what do you want? What do you want? And there were only 3 or 4 students in that performance, and so I was blessed and grateful to be a part of that. And then the day after, the performance was at Symphony Space, Complexions performance, and that's Friday and Saturday night. And that Sunday, I went to audition for Philadelphia. And Deborah Chase Hicks, who was one of Dwight's partners, and Desmond, of course, in the Ailey Company, was rehearsal director for Philadelphia. I was exhausted. Pat Thomas was teaching the audition at Philadelphia. I had only basically made it through Graham 1, and she was like 7 and 8, and then the whole class went back, and I was like looking around. I was like, I'm not going to make this. But Deborah Chase had been at the performance the day before, and so she vouched for my performance ability. And from then, Joe Myers Brown said, well, I don't know what I'm going to do with you, but I'm going to hire you. So I was at Philadelphia for 6 years, and then I joined Ailey and have just retired from Ailey in June from a 20-year career from them. But I am only 29 years old. Do your math. That's my story.
Me too. What an amazing story. Wow. And was there, at what point when you were at Ailey, is that when you said, I mean, when you moved to New York, when did you say to yourself, I want to be a professional dancer? And what did that pivot mean for you? When you left Howard, is that when it happened?
No, I didn't know. It was really Dwight. Like, it was really being a part of that performance, because at the end of that performance, he gave me an envelope. Like, maybe I'd missed the memo that we were getting paid for that. I did not know. I had no idea. And I remember there was a check for $500. And I was like, are you kidding me? I knew that people did it. I knew there was fame. I knew, but I just didn't see it for me. I literally was thinking that I was taking a semester off. I fought hard for that. My mom would not help me with anything financial. We spoke all the time, but she was like, I can't support that. I can't support you leaving college and leaving Howard to do, I can't, she couldn't wrap her head around all the work she'd done as an educator for me to leave to go pursue something that she just didn't know anything about. And I grew up as Miss Boykin's daughter, but now she's Hope's mom. And and now to what's funny is that this semester for 2021, I'm the artistic advisor for the Howard University Dance Department.
Oh,
So like I give back, I call, I'm teaching a comp class, I'm curating their performance. So it's like, it's a big thing that I had to trust my own gut. There's nothing, it was tough.
yeah.
It's tough every day. It's tough getting out of bed, right? But I would do it all the same.
Yeah.
And finding myself in a position to be paid to do what I love happened. It wasn't something that I looked at. I did say I want to be an Ailey. I said that, but I don't think I realized that meant health insurance, dental. I can pay my rent. I don't think I wrapped my head around the fact that I could be supported and support myself with a dance job. I didn't know what that really meant. I wasn't surrounded by that. You were a teacher, professor, lawyer, doctor, like that's what you did. And then now I'm over here doing this. So it's, I kind of had my own lane
Mhm.
in North Carolina. Yeah.
Absolutely. I love this story because I'm learning right now, speaking to you, and what I didn't know is that this connection with you and Dwight. And here, what's crazy is Dwight is choreographing for the first time ever on BalletX, as are you. So here we've got this really like spark of a connection, like the beginning of your career. And here you, and I've known both of you and worked with both of you years back. I was in Dwight's piece at the Pennsylvania Ballet, and I remember you very fondly dancing in Philadelphia. So it's just pretty remarkable to see how interconnected we all are, and this beautiful symmetry.
Yeah. I call his name all the time. He said something, show me the work. It was, he didn't want to see the ease of it. He wanted to say, show me the work. I think I might have even called his name in rehearsal yesterday with your dancers. I think I think I did say that. Like, Dwight would say, do this, because those people have been such influences. Dwight really is probably the leading male figure who has had an influence. Dwight and Milton Myers, and then Tally Beatty, really gave me opportunities that I probably would never have had the had the chance to dive into. He was really something, and I talk about him more than I tell him, so I should probably tell him, the kind of influence he's had on me, because I'm proud to have been a part of that beginning process.
So tell us, what were some of your favorite memories at Ailey?
Wow. Okay, my very first year in the company, uh, I came in, I had to finish time with Philadelphia, so I was late learning everything. I wasn't in some of the newer works the choreographers had started, but we went on an international tour. And in Revelations, there are 9 men that are cast for parts in Revelations, but there are only 6 women. So there are 3 women who do just Buked, which is the opening wedge, and then just the yellow section. They may not be Umbrella or Fix Me, or so I was often one of those women. As a new dancer in the company, you're going to do Buked in yellow, is what you saw on the program. You see your name in Buked, you see your name in yellow, you knew where you were going to stand your bow. And we were in Copenhagen, and I'll never forget it, dancing at Tivoli Gardens. And one night there was no number 1 girl, which is the woman, the deepest plie in the front of the wedge. And Desiree Vlad was off that night, and Linda Denise Fisher Harrell was off that night. But Linda Denise had less seniority than Desiree Vlad, so Chaya had to ask her to put on her makeup, put on a bun, and just do that one section. The next day, I had rehearsal for that role, that point. And I don't know how I even made it through it, because I cried the whole time. I mean, I was like, curtain had it open, and I was just, I don't know. Don't, go to the right, to the right. You're telling yourself, because there's no one to follow. So like, make sure you go to the right. It's to the right. It's to the right. And then you try to look behind. It's to the right. It's to the right. And in my last performance with Ailey, here in my living room, I was like, is it to the right? So it doesn't matter, because there's no one to follow. And so I had to be, I had to resign myself to that. I mean, those times, I've never been so many places. I could never have imagined the families that I would have become a part of. I have friends right now that are on WhatsApp, that I've just met at random at a cafe, and then we become friends, or shopping buddies. I've been invited to international weddings. Some of them I can go to, some of them I can't, just because of the amount of travel that we were able to do. And my last international tour, I actually went to Rotterdam for the first time. So that was my very first time in Holland, and that was unreal to know that I was actually having a first in my last year. So it was not every day was the best day, but I would not change a day. The days are long, but the years are short. And with the exception of the aches and pains that I have had so many lovely experiences, so many frustrating experiences, so much joy, but there's joy in the struggle, there's joy in the climb out of the valley, learning how to deal with people, learning how to be in the front of the room when I'm choreographing on Ailey, and then the second half of the day I'm standing beside the person I was just frustrated with, like, so you have to be, hey, like switch your, I didn't fuss at you earlier, but and then I was reminded yesterday that I'm the only woman who's been in the company and choreographed 3 works on the company. So that's kind of nice too. I'm an only for right now.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
From our Instagram followers, they asked a question: where would be one of your highlight cities that you toured to with Ailey, and why?
Um, Easy answer, and that's Paris, and it's because we actually would do a season there. Like, we would perform there for 3 or 4 weeks, and so we were living there. We were in hotels, but we were, in the same hotel. You saw the same people at breakfast. We had transportation cards, a Metro card or whatever, so we were able to get around I fell in love there. I was motivated to start writing there because I fell in love there. My heart grew stronger when it broke. But I absolutely can recall every single moment, every single shop that I've been in, every single scarf, every single bag I bought. The good stuff has been in Paris. It really has.
Go to
So
Paris.
superficial. So superficial.
We do what we can, you know.
Right, right, right. And the audiences, though, because I've never heard this like stomping in unison, doing 2 and 3 encores of Revelations. You're like, oh my gosh, can we not do another one? And they're just stomping and stomping and stomping, and people tapping you on the shoulder the next day, saying, I saw you last night, and you're, just in another part of town. And it's just amazing to be a part of an organization that did that for me.
Yeah, yeah. And it
Yeah.
does that for the world, right?
Yeah, for sure.
For the world. I mean, the trajectory of the company's outstanding, and just what it's done for New York City and the community and what it continues to do. And I know you've been a big part of, how they've navigated in terms of virtual and just really being, your family, not only to Alvin Ailey, but to Philadelphia and us in Philadelphia.
Yes.
Moving on to your choreography, when did you first choreograph, and what inspires you with choreography?
My first commission was in the 4th grade. I was asked to choreograph all the dance sequences for the Oompa Loompas as we were doing our fourth. I'm not kidding. And I was a mess. I was a mess. I just was like, my drama teacher, Miss Blackburn, said, Can you, Hope, I know you dance, and we want to do some dance things for the Oompa Loompas. And I would go to her house and I would just stand there like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. For our 4th grade, you know, end of the year, Willy Wonka. That was my first commission. Um, and, and then when I was at Nina Wheeler's School of Dance, Nina Wheeler in Durham, I was a teaching assistant. And so there were times I could go and work in a different studio and I'd put music on and I'd start to move. So that was also a lead in. But I'm also an alumna of the American Dance Festival. And so being being surrounded in what I call the modern dance summer camp at the time, because it was 6 weeks. It was always hot, held at Duke University. And I was in class with, and you're not going to believe this, Betty Jones just passed, but Pauline Connor, Lucas Hoving, Hanya Holm was there, like Tally Beatty, Pearl Primus, Donald McHale, David Hochoy. Like, I had no idea I was around all this greatness. No idea. And so there were these Fred Benjamin and Bernard Johnson, like there were these classes during the day. And then we'd find that we would be in the dorm. Even though I lived in Durham, I wanted to be in the environment. So we'd be in the dorm and we'd go and we'd just dance all night, dance until we couldn't do anything. Well, I think the arm should go here. Well, no, let's put the arm here. And we'd be doing this collaboration. Before you knew it, you'd made something that you were able to present. And so not only was I getting technique classes, I was able to hone my skill in trying to make work. And then also at ADF, you had a ticket to see live performances every night. Right. So I was watching Bill T. Jones, D-Man the Water and Dayton Contemporary Dance Company, like just watching all these things. I'm like, oh, look at these people doing this, and still didn't realize there was a paycheck involved. I didn't still, even though I was at high school in my first 2 years at Howard, I was at ADF, but I didn't wrap my head around it. And then I just couldn't stop making things. I guess I thought I could do it, oh, I have something to say. Let me try to say this thing.
So I used to choreograph and obviously I danced and, is there a choreographic voice that you need to ignore or empower? You know what I mean? Like dancing, it's like so in your soul, like you're meant to do it. And then making that shift into choreography can either just like, for me, it didn't drip off my bones. So I was a very heady choreographer. I thought about everything. I like overanalyzed myself. Do you find that there's any hurdles for you, or do you feel like it drips off you and this is your next calling?
Well, that's really great. So I'm artistic lead at Kennedy Center for the Kennedy Center Dance Lab, and it's a 2-week summer program. And I invited all my friends to speak or to be a part of it. And I heard Matthew say to them, to the students, something that he'd said before, but I had forgotten. And he said that his identity and how he made work was wrapped up in all he had learned at Ailey. And once he realized that all of those influences built him, he was okay for how he made his work. And I was like, oh yeah. So I don't need to worry about who I'm copying because they're in me. Like there's Dwight and there's Desmond and Tally Beatty and Joe Myers Brown and all the shakes, all the things are in this bowl of hope, in this this simmering thing. And so just go and do it. And I teach my own version. I teach no. Let me claim the best part of it. I teach comp, right? And I tell them all the time that I think movement is abstract. It absolutely doesn't matter what you do. Mm-hmm. You can do this 20 times. Doesn't matter, right? But then you give it color with music. You give it color with context. You heighten it with what you want to say. And I don't worry about the movement. I try to build movement as vocabulary for each project that I have. But I have things that are definitely me. But I don't worry about the movement. I worry about the message. And then I also learned from Dolores Brown. She said, you don't have to have a plot to have a purpose. And so I don't worry about telling a story all the time. I just worry about having a beginning, middle, and end. And if I can get from the beginning to the end with some kind of climax, it's like the 3-act, the arc of 3 acts in filmmaking. If you can build up into a climax, then you can get to resolution. And that's the way that I think about making work. And then I have fun with it. But I don't ever worry about the steps, but I do think that that's a gifting. Because that's free, like some people don't worry, oh, I don't like sugar, so they don't eat it. You're like, how could you not, I wish I didn't like sugar. But for me, my thing is I don't worry about the steps. The steps will come. I worry about how to make the arc of the work work. So it's the making is not so hard. And then I found that I ask myself why. If anyone really wants to break down like in a heady space of choreography, read Simon Sinek's Start With Why. Even though it's talking about business, that's my series of man, sorry. Even though it's talking about business, it makes you think, well, why are you doing it? Like, what's the reason behind your work? What's the reason behind you going into the studio? Like, what's the why? And the why has to stay consistent. The minute you are disjointed from your why, the work is disjointed, yeah. I think.
So I just want to say I'm so grateful to have all these folks on this Zoom with us. We're just loving having you here. We see you. I mean, we don't see your face, but we see you in numbers. And what's so exciting is we're going to be going live to the studio. I can see them through the window here, and we're going to show some of Hope's work in about 5 minutes. But I also want to encourage folks to leave questions that we can answer after we see the live stream. And I also just want to do a big shout out to the Wyncote Foundation, because without the Wyncote Foundation and Leonard Haas, we wouldn't be able to do this. And what this is highlighting the work of choreographers, female choreographers. I, years back, took a look and said, I was commissioning a lot more men than women, and I didn't even realize my own place in the world and my responsibility, that I wanted to have it be balanced and equal. So for me, last several years have just said I've got to commission women and men balanced. It's just really important to me. I don't think many people know that there's quite a significant discrepancy in our field, that a lot more men are making work than women. So I'm trying to do my part. But separate from that, Hope, tell us about your inspiration in your piece that we're going to be seeing.
So this will be the second work that I've made for ballet company, a ballet-based company. I know BalletX does it all, but there's never a hesitation to put on the point shoe, never a hesitation for the classical line, and which I think is wonderful. There's a true mix, and so I knew that I wanted to work within that genre of the form, but I also had some other movement ideas, and I meant to invite to this, and I'm going to get in so much trouble. But I think I'm going to be working with a good friend of mine, Ali Jackson, on music. And so even though I'm building these phrases, I know that the theme right now is surrender. I should have pulled it up. Let me pull up this definition. Not just any definition of surrender, but let me find. I'm sorry. I should have been more prepared, but here it comes.
It's all
Um, yeah, and I'm usually like super prepared, and it's of course my phone is acting
surrender.
crazy. Oh, there it is. Okay, so here it is. It's to abandon oneself entirely to a powerful emotion or influence. And I didn't want surrender, which is another idea of a lot of times people think surrender and submission display weakness, but you actually have to be the stronger person to fall into someone else who is in authority. Like you are artistic director of BalletX, so you are the authority. It doesn't mean that I am less because you are who you are. That's just what it is. And then I bring my portion, and then your portion, and then the whole thing grows. But how do we surrender to circumstance? How do you surrender to certain emotions without it feeling like it's negative? How do you surrender to the person in front of you? How the timing? I'm working on writing some text. I don't really have it yet, so it comes. Sometimes the text is in the work. Sometimes the text just motivates the work. But I've been really inspired by the dancers. I was away for a residency for the first week of working with your company. So I was in a studio space with two dancers with me. So the work just flew out. Like the movement just was like, because I was in a space and we were bubbled, so we didn't have to wear our masks and isolated upstate New York. And so that was a real honor to be able to actually see movement on people and then transfer that movement to your dancers. And I think it created a nice palette of vocabulary. So now we can just keep going.
How fantastic. Is it challenge? I mean, it's so helpful to have that residency to be able to see the dancers moving. And are you finding the restriction, you're still feeling that flow, or do you feel the apartment kind of coming in, and is it so different being in the apartment?
Well, I honestly think yesterday we met and I was here for the first time and I was fine. Or maybe it wasn't the first time. No, it was the second day. But I wanted to do something new and I'd been working out some new movement. And so I just moved everything over and started to show them the movement. But because we had a palette already laid out, there was just so much information. And I also knew them. Like getting to work earlier in the year, early in the pandemic with Savannah and Ashley. And then I, served sort of as this mentor to Ashley when she was graduating from BFA. So like all of that helped get into the flow of who your dancers were. When Richard was graduating from UArts, I taught a master class. He sent me a photo. He was like, remember this? And it actually put 9 years ago, I was much younger. But like those layers helped it be easy to come in and create work. And it's been fun. I have not felt challenged. We just have to embrace where we are. We will go back to the stage, but we just have to think virtually and for stage. As a choreographer, I would always say, if this were a movie moment, it would be this. And then you'd have to pare it down. Now I'm like, let's do this, and then when we get on stage, we'll do this. So I love that everything has to have a duality, and that we can function and move forward. If you try to stay in yesterday, you're going to get stuck. So I don't even use that term new normal, because I looked up normal, and normal is standard, usual, and regular. And since I wouldn't use any of those words in my bio, I just call it the newness. So when we get to this newness, we're in a newness. We'll go back to a different newness. I don't want to think of it as regular or standard. It's just something we were used to, and now we have to get used to something new, and then we'll get used to something new after that.
Beautiful. Well, let's head over to the studio, and
Cool.
this is the first time we've ever had the dancers. Hello, dancers. So can the dancers just come up and say hello, who you are, and is there anything that you would want to share that was positive this year for you?
Hi everyone, I'm Ashley Simpson. I'm so happy to be here. Something positive for me from this last year was joining the company and getting to be able to be a part of this. I'm so grateful, so honored, and happy to be here.
Hi everyone, I'm Richard Vieve today. This year has been amazing. It's been so awesome to be dancing with everyone and stay connected and stay together and stay with our family. It's been really, really special just to connect with each other and connect with you guys. So thank you all. Love you.
Hi everyone, I'm Skylar Lubin. I really appreciate coming back and having all this space to dance and feeling the connections with all the dancers. I really missed that, so appreciative.
Hi everyone, I'm Francesca Porcella. Something really positive for me has been all the places that we have filmed in. It's been really cool to explore different areas of the city that I feel like I've never seen before. So that's been really fun and awesome. And to dance in those beautiful spaces. So thank you, shout out to all the cool Philly spots. Thanks.
Hi everyone, I'm Zachary Kapellik, and something great that happened to me this year was that I got engaged to the person right behind me.
Hi, I'm Andy Urita, and obviously that was a highlight of my year, but also just learning new skills and finding new parts of myself has been great.
Hey everyone, I'm Blake Craples. My favorite part of this year was slowing down and really appreciating things and people and moments that normally pass us by with all the craziness. It was great to just enjoy this slower pace of life, but now we're back.
Hi everyone, I'm Savannah. I really enjoyed making the transition from being a dance fellow into joining the company and finding my voice along the way.
Hi everyone, I'm Sean. I'm the dance fellow for this season, and I guess my most prized moment has been working with the dancers in the company during this season. It has been such a privilege, and I'm so excited to continue.
Awesome.
Christine, Andy didn't tell me Zach had locked it down. I knew they were together, but I didn't know he put a ring on it. Come on, you're supposed to share that stuff with me. What?
Surprise, surprise.
Single lady. You're not a single lady.
So Hope, we're showing a couple sections. You want to
Yes.
just tell us a little bit about what we're seeing?
Sure. The first one, we just call it, I reference it like the trail phrase. That's the first one we're going to see, I think. And it's not long, but you can really see the beauty of the dancers and their movement. And I like moving like one long run-on sentence. And so you're going to see that first. And then we can talk about the next one that'll give them a little break, right? I think so, yeah. Okay.
And we're going to stop our video so that we can just focus on that. And I'll see you in a sec.
Awesome.
Beautiful. That was gorgeous.
So that was, and I forgot that I don't usually work to the music that will be the final music. I always work with something else because I feel like that gives the feeling of and the quality of the style that I want, because probably we're working with a percussive score for this work, but I wanted them to still float. I wanted them to feel like there was air and breath. And that happens to be a Philadelphia native, Leslie Odom Jr., singing Ave Maria, who's a friend of mine and just nominated for 2 Golden Globes last night. I know, right? So I always use Leslie when I'm making work. Like, literally. And I'll just send him little videos. I was in the studio today. He was like, you always use that song. I'm like, I can't help it. So, how are you all? Are you okay to start? Okay. So this next section is part of that real idea. You start to see that real idea of surrender, I think, in this sort of developing. And if I were in my head, there's probably going to be more passing, as if you're, oh, I don't want to go so far, but I will. Some of the vision that I have is that there's traffic, there's constant motion, and then how do you find your own peace within this motion? You have some counter balance movement. Richard and Ashley, Zach and Andy are featured in this particular section, but once we continue to fill it out, there'll be constant walking, running, moving against the quality of the movement that they do. And this is a different piece of music, but it's lovely. And stay airy, don't rush. Okay, can't help it. Awesome, friends. Thank you.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
That was great. I was over here like, yes.
I was crying, you know.
Oh, and because every organization, every institution has different COVID rules, and I was really grateful to hear that because Andy and Zach are living in a unit, a unit together that we could actually touch. That was huge and exciting. So thank you for that.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, it's hard not to.
Yeah, it just, coming back, and just this sense of, we've all kind of been holding our breath for the past year.
Right.
What is your takeaway? Like, does it make this time of creation different for you? Do you feel different?
Um, to be honest, I have never worked so hard. I was worried in general in 20 December 27th of 2019, I had ankle surgery. April 1st of 2020, I joined the company after rehabbing for 4 months. Jawale Willow Jozolar, who's the founder of Urban Bush Women, said, I think you should do one more year. I was like, how am I going to get through one more year? And in November, I had a knee drama. So I went to the doctors, I went to all artistic. I was like, how can I get to May? So the theme was get hope to May. And then in March, COVID. So I was like, oh, I'm not going to retire. I'm not going to, and then I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And we'd planned to go to Vail, and you said, I still want you to do this work. And then I got a phone call saying, could you speak to my students? And I've been the keynote speaker at the Lincoln Center Education Forum, which is now Lincoln Center Activate, for the last few years. And so they were like, Hope, can you do it virtually? And then my Kennedy Center gig went virtual. And can you choreograph this? And can, artist in residence at USC? And I had to do 2 pieces. Like, it was just like catching all of these things, and I was like, oh, I'm tired. I thought I was going to lose my validity, not be relevant. You know what I mean? Like all of the things that I feared. And it's difficult at times to actually say I'm thriving during the worst time of our lives. But I have learned that I was already in pivot mode because I was already carrying cameras. I already had mics. I've got lights. I was already documenting my life, my last 2 years of Ailey, so I just had to put all those things on my table and then use them. And then that made my transition much simpler into what I now am using to live. I mean, I was in your rehearsal one day, I was in DC, and then I was in LA, and all in the same day. How do you even do that? Like, how does one approach that? I've choreographed in London, I've taught at Rambert in London, I choreographed for Ballet Black in London. These premieres and things that are going on, it's kind of crazy. Like in the grand scheme of it, I feel overwhelmed because of the amount of work, and I know it's a blessing. I am honored by it. I'm humbled by it. And so I try not to say no. So the only way I say no is if there are 2 things booked on the same day. That's the only time I've ever said no. But I'm just trying to stay in, continue to motivate, build the young people who want to continue to work, help them see that there's a lane for them because someone helped create a lane for me.
Beautifully said. So true. That the power of yes. When my mother passed away and I had to write, and speak in front of at her funeral, I just, when I thought of my mother, I thought about, she said yes to me, and that sticks with me so much. Yes. It's such a positive word, and we make things happen when we say yes, so I really appreciate you speaking on that. Is it tricky at all? You know, I'm grateful that you made it on point. Does it make it less? What are the challenges with point shoes? You know, do you just forget about them and just tell us?
Yeah, sometimes I know I want things to happen, and then I see the men in the room doing it, and I'm like, oh yeah. But I will say to the ladies, how does that work in that boot? That's what I said, how does it work in the boot? What do you need to do? And then I find, even in the smallest areas, and then this is sometimes when I have to remember to acknowledge the study and the training that I've had and my experience, that I can look at them and help them be better on that thing that I'm not working on. You know, how do we brush our leg? How are you going to do that balance? Like thing, you know, I think I say to them, they're probably laughing at me. I'm like, it's science. You know, just like use science to maneuver your body, because it's an instrument. It is a miracle, but it's also an instrument. And some things we do because it's natural, and some things we do because we have learned it. And I want them to know that they will, even when they're older and things may not work the way they used to work, that they're still able to function because they know how their instrument works. And so it hasn't been so difficult. I forget sometimes, but I try to think of them when I'm making the work. I'm getting to know them has been really, really nice. Like seeing their strengths, being able to work with their strengths. Knowing that Skylar's a very different dancer from Francesca, from Savannah and Ashley, and poor Ashley. I literally harass her through Zoom, but I feel like I can, because, you know, she's right here, and I know she's not a baby, but I'm proud of all of, but she's also, I'm so proud of her. And I do hope she's listening. I'm so proud of her that I feel like if I don't tell her, then I'm doing her a disservice. If I don't say no, then I'm not honoring her the way my truth tellers honored me. And so I want to, and I feel like that probably has lightened up the room, because they're like, oh, she'll tell Ashley. But I love that she's so open and so absorbent of all the things that I've been doing. So I don't feel like it's too difficult. And she and everyone, they work so hard. They really do. And I feel like it's easy. I don't ever feel, who is she? I don't feel any of that. I don't feel shade. I feel welcome.
You're so sweet.
really-
They see me like I like to give speeches. And it's like, here comes Christine, and they're like, which is so far from motivational. No,
Oh,
I'm just like, I just believe in, you know, hard work. So my job is to just say, let's just keep working hard. You know, let's just keep getting better. I mean, we're all so different in BalletX. The dancers are all so different, and I love it.
yeah.
And I think that's what makes the company special. And we're always striving to, we're striving to be blank slates for makers like yourself. So, you know, we're working together to make the technique stronger and stronger each and every day, but then to remove any judgment, so that when, you know, physically, because, you know, when a dancer puts their hands on their hips and they're looking at you like, really? You're going to do that step?
Yeah, and sometimes it has nothing to do with us. It has nothing to do with the choreographer, because I've been in that space, and I hope that I don't forget that. You know, I hope that I can remember that they have feelings, and maybe they're hungry, and that maybe they didn't sleep well that night, or maybe their pinky toe is hurting, or they have a paper cut, you know? Like all of that affects the dancers. All of that affects how you function. And when I was in the studio, I was always the dancer who smiled even when the class was the worst. You know, I was like, oh yeah, thanks, because I knew everyone else. But we danced all night. We had rehearsal all day, and you don't always know your face. But this is what I tell my students. Are you ready? Hold on, let's get it clear.
Your rest.
I have it right here. When I'm teaching, I'm like,
Miracle. It's true.
fix it, because they're like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm going a little off here, but I was teaching a master class yesterday on Zoom, and you can even feel the energy even on Zoom. And I'm like drawn to one of the 16 students and saying, listen, it can happen through Zoom. You're going to have to figure out how to spark that director's interest if you want to get a job. You can't wait for it to happen. You have to lean in, lean forward. Like
We really can see more on, we can see more on Zoom. We can. You can't hide behind the person in the studio or in the classroom with you. You can see everything. Yeah.
So this is an odd question. And again, if anybody has any questions, I'm going to peek and see if there's some. What do you think makes a successful piece? Like, what is success? Like, what is a great piece? What do you think? This is something I'm curious myself.
I don't know. You know, like if I don't know what it's like to be the artistic director of an organization. I tell people all the time, yes, Hope Boykin Dance LLC is my business. And sometimes that pays me as a choreographer. It'll pay me as a teacher. And then I sometimes am able to pay an editor, pay, you know, some admin, but I don't think of myself as having a dance company. It's very different. And I call myself a director, not the artistic director. So, you know, because it's, there's a fine line, I think, with what you've committed to, and I'm still in like freelance mode. But I find that directors, artistic directors, have to tell the audience what they want them to see and then appreciate and then like. You know, it's like you said, I believe in this choreographer. I'm going to give this choreographer space to make something. I'm going to teach you something maybe you didn't know. And those times, I'll just make some references to Ailey, those cities that we would go to on tour where we didn't have to close with revelations, those presenters were very honed in to their audience. Because my mother doesn't want to come to a performance and there's no revelations. She didn't care if I was in it. You know, she was like, but there's no revelations. Like how can that? So I don't know how something works if you can't help guide your audience toward an idea that they may not be. Maybe there's not an unwillingness, but not even knowing that they needed it. And I feel like you do see truth and honesty in the work. So if I am phoning something in, that's going to be apparent to the dancers, and then the dancers are going to phone in the performance. But if I give the dancers all of me, then I can trust that they will give all of themselves when they're doing the work. Even when I'm watching in the studio and someone's dancing and I go and I watch to the corner and someone snaps at them or they tell them that was good, that means that there's encouragement, there's life, all of that is important. So in the scope of success is when I've had a good relationship with the artists and I like what I see. We deem success with what they say in the New York Times, because then people are going to want us for the next thing. Not every form of compensation is green, you know, so we've got to keep our heads around how we influence others, how we speak to people, how kind are you, you know, what kind of feeling are you leaving in the room, whether it's a Zoom room or not? What kind of feeling are you leaving when you leave the space, so that someone can remember the motivation and the encouragement you gave them?
Hear, hear. And here's a question from Tiffany. While working with these beautiful BalletX dancers and with the many other communities of dancers you've had the chance to work with during the pandemic, how do you feel that the dynamic between the dancers and you, the choreographer, has changed or been enriched by the isolation we've all endured?
That's great. I believe, as a person who's older now, that the pandemic has leveled the playing field so much, and our injustice and the pandemic of injustice and racism has like opened our eyes, even though this is not new. You know, George Floyd's death was something we all watched. We all saw it, and you couldn't unsee it. So everyone saw the same thing. Everyone was on lockdown. This is not a New York thing. It was not an Ailey thing. It was not a Philadelphia BalletX thing. It was a world thing. And so because we were leveled, I think that everyone had a different appreciation, whether you were young or you were old. You know, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, my grandmother married my grandfather and they were like 19. They'd had 3 kids by the time they were 23. Now we say that is an irresponsible person. You know, when that was someone before that was normal. You know, you got married early, you developed a family early, you did that. Now as times have changed, we often award young people for showing up. And someone said to me that you don't applaud a fish for swimming. That's what they do. And so once we're in this space, everyone has had to realize that they are valid and what they want, they have to work for. And they didn't have someone reminding them on the side or behind them or someone to look. They had to log in. They had to pull out their chair and they had to save money for their ballet bar. They had to buy a piece of Marley or use the kitchen floor. I've taught classes and one dancer's parent was doing laundry and she was so focused. I was like, she's number one. She's already won. She's won because this is that important to her. So when I see it's important to them, I'm enriched. And then I need to show up with my best self. I can sit here on my couch and have a pity party all day long, but if they want it, then I should give it to them. And that's what I want and have been, hopefully, full pun intended, hopeful, full of hopefully. I really want to make sure that I'm constantly giving as much as I'm receiving because I'm learning from them. I'm learning from the BalletX dancers. I'm learning from the 10-year-old who just wants to show up and learn something. I am so encouraged. And then I've been challenged because if I can do it in my living room, I can do it anywhere. Period.
And here's our final question. What was one of your favorite moments performing? It can be any specific role, standing in the wings, between your next movement, traveling and chatting with your fellow dancers. What was your favorite moment?
I loved doing a work called, by Ulysses Dove called Urban Folk Dance. I don't think we're kind of allowed to do this dance anymore. There's some like slapping and you know, like it might not be, but it's brilliant. And I got to perform this piece. I had 2 partners, Bernard J. Gilmore, and then my last partner was Matthew Rushing. So first of all, dancing with Matthew Rushing was a point. And it's 2 duets, 2 tables, 4 chairs. We each have our own apartment. I had the affair with the guy in the next, you know, like it was just this whole storyline. It was amazing. And I danced it with Matthew. My last group was Matthew, was my partner, and then Linda Sims and Clifton Brown. And my mother said, Chaya let you dance with Matthew, Linda, and Clifton? And I was like, come on, Mom. But I was kind of saying the same thing myself. Like, how did I make it to be in a cast like this? And I have a picture on my wall of me dancing with Matthew. It's one of my favorite ballets. Ulysses Dove was epically amazing. And like in the ballet world, he did Serious Pleasures for ABT. He did Red Angels. Episodes was done on a company in Paris. I forget their name first before it was done on Point first. You know, so he came from Alvin Ailey, and then he also is doing the thing that I want to do, go everywhere and choreograph. So that was really a highlight for me. I mean, Revelations, absolutely. But other than Revelations, yes. Okay, I'm done. I talk a lot. Sorry.
No, it's fantastic. Hope, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Can't wait to see your piece. I don't have the dates yet, but we're gonna figure it out this summer, and we're gonna make it work, and it's gonna be safe. And I can't wait to see everybody. Thank you all for joining us, and Hope, many blessings.
Thank you, friend. Thank you. This has been awesome. Thanks, dancers.